Welcome to Couchonomics with Arjun. The show aims to unravel the layers of the fintech sector and the rapidly evolving tech startup ecosystem across the MENA region and beyond. I am your host Arjun, and I will be inviting founders, executives, investors, regulators, and other influential stakeholders to discuss and dissect the highs and lows of their own ventures and how they foresee the wider ecosystem evolve. Join us as we celebrate success and the spirit of risk-taking, the candid discussion that goes past the timid question and cautious answers. This show is produced in collaboration with Adyan, a reliable end-to-end payment solution that enables businesses to turn payments into a strategic growth driver. We're also brought to you by Lulu Financial Group, a global financial services provider headquartered in Abu Dhabi and operating in 11 countries. Finally, Couchonomics with Arjun Singh is brought to you by M2P FinTech, Asia's leading payment infrastructure company that enables businesses of any scale to embed financial products. Well, welcome to this episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. I'm your host, Arjun Singh. But more importantly, I have the smartest guy in Dubai on the couch today, Ronit Ghose, who is also the global head of FinTech and Digital for Citi. Ronit, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Arjun.
Is the couch comfortable?
The couch is very comfortable. I'm not sure about being the smartest guy in Dubai, but the couch is super comfortable.
Right. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And thanks a lot for sharing the report, Metaverse and Money, Decrypting the Future.
You've got a sneak preview.
Yeah, I did.
There are a very small number of people in the whole world who have that right now.
And thank you for the sneak preview, but it did keep me up till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Actually, if our compliance officers are listening, he doesn't have a sneak preview. We made that up.
But it was 163 pages, right?
It was quite long, yeah.
Right. Now, we're not going to have time to cover all the 163 pages.
Yeah.
So what I've tried to do is summarize 3 or 4 questions, which I would be keen to sort of get your view or view of the report here.
Yeah.
Let me just start with the most basic one, right? Yeah. What is the metaverse?
Yeah.
Why do we need it?
Yeah.
Is it just a hype? Yeah. Or as other people might say it, is it like a Dubai brunch, which is overly expensive and incredibly underwhelming?
Well, you clearly do more branches than me. So what is the metaverse? It's a really interesting question. So some people take a narrow definition of the metaverse, a narrow view. Did you get an Oculus this holiday season?
I did.
You do have an Oculus, yes. So do we. So our little guy who's 7, about to be 8, wanted an Oculus. I thought, well, this could be fun. Let's try it out. So yeah. Went on Amazon, got the Oculus, and I think there are a few tens of millions of people in the world who have a device like that. So that's the narrow definition of a metaverse. VR headsets, you're kind of in that world. And often people think that's it. So we think the metaverse is anything that's the internet but immersive. So the key word here is immersive. So the internet today, you can get lost in it already, right? Because you're just reading or watching, or whether it's Netflix or whatever it is, you can get immersed. But the metaverse is about being completely immersed. Whether it's in 3D, in 2D, it's immersive. It's also always on. It's like this room we're filming in. If I walked out, you'd still be here. I'd come back, we'd be. Now, in the metaverse, in the digital world, if I walk out of a room, the room disappears. Mm-hmm. In the metaverse, it carries on. It's always on. It's like a digital version of, imagine we're in Dubai. Imagine in the metaverse, it'd be a digital Dubai, except when you log off, it doesn't disappear like a game does.
Yeah, so it's a parallel universe.
Like Minecraft, Roblox, those kind of games that our kids play would be thought of as a proto-metaverse.
Well, I played them too, so.
Okay, I'm not very good at them. But those would be proto-metaverses. So an important part of what a metaverse is it's persistent, so always on. It's immersive. And it's 3D, can be VR, doesn't have to be VR. Most people will access the metaverse through the phone. So there's about 4.2 billion people that have a smartphone, according to stats. I think there's more than 5 or 6 billion smartphones in the world, but 4.2 billion, and about 5 billion internet users. All of those people, or not all of them, a large number of those people in the next 10 years will be accessing the internet through the metaverse rather than their phone. It'll be like the device could still be a phone, but it won't be a 2D experience. It'll be a 3D experience. And that's the metaverse for you.
So proto-metaverse.
Proto-metaverse.
I will look it up later tonight.
It's in my 160-page book.
Well, I definitely missed that word. But again, for the people listening into the podcast or viewing this podcast, building blocks of a metaverse. We hear terms like Web 3, right? Web 2.5. We hear decentralization, right? Or decentralized. Although for some bizarre reason, I feel the metaverse is centralizing itself in some form or the other.
Could be.
We obviously blockchain underpins all of this, right? So tell us about the building blocks, right? So how does this metaverse come around? How does it get built? How does it become broader in your definition from just people like me wearing Oculus and playing Roblox?
So the building blocks of the metaverse. First of all, you need a very basic point people often overlook is we need connectivity. We need the pipes, so to speak, to be working, to be bigger and broader. Think about the 3G world, or the 4G world, and maybe just riffing a bit, think of the impact Geo had on the Indian economy, the internet economy in India. And imagine if we had that in Pakistan or Nigeria. Internet connectivity would be huge in these countries. Or 7-8 years ago compared to today in India, internet connectivity today versus then. Why is there this internet economy in India, which is probably the third largest internet economy in the world, or by some definitions, and all of those startups and everything that's happened? Because Geo and others built literally the pipes. Not just built it, they made it affordable. And so for the metaverse to happen, so if you think about the definition of the metaverse being as the next generation internet, so everything that was required to build the current generation, call it 3G, 4G internet, everything that was built, we need that and more. So we need 5G or 5G plus. So we need a lot of basically connectivity. Now, why? Because if I'm in this world, this VR or AR world, and we're like, I don't know, we're riffing like this, but we're in the metaverse, and then all our friends join us. Yeah? So there's like 20 or 30 of us. To actually host that and make it realistic and make it real time and interactive, we just need a lot more bandwidth than you can do today on a 3G or 4G.
Hold your thought on that. And this is my issue, right? So we've spent the last 2 years on Zoom calls, team calls, whatever other platform do you use. And let's be honest, the experience has been fairly unpleasant, right? Calls have been dropping off. Connectivity is not been great. If you're on the move, things drop off. So how far away are we? Because if the pipes aren't there,
you're referring to when you were zooming in from your house in Delhi, right?
You do remember that,
I do remember that.
We co-hosted.
Yeah, we co-hosted that event, and there you were, and you're scrambling around,
and you rescued us.
But right? that's my point. I mentioned Geo positively earlier, but there's still this problem in large parts of the world, in India. And you were in Delhi. I mean, not in some rural town. I mean. Or in, when I'm talking to our friends in, places like Nigeria, we're talking about the future of fintech, and then their Zoom call drops. I mean, I've had senior, some leading fintech entrepreneurs, senior government officials, and their Zoom drops because the pipes don't work. I doubt that's happened to you sitting in Dubai or in Madrid or New York, because this goes back to connectivity and bandwidth. So that needs to be built out. So 5G, estimates are, they're probably by 2025, I'm quoting industry bodies, it's not my number, but we'll have about a quarter of the world on 5G by 2025. Mm-hmm. That's only a quarter. So, in the report we're saying that by 2030, something like 3/4 of the world will either have 5G or pretty good Wi-Fi at home. Mm-hmm. But, you're sitting in some, not just rural part of India, but large parts of India or Africa, and the network doesn't get improved. They can't access the metaverse. So all of those debates we've had in the last 5-10 years about equity and access, if everything's going online, if all the kids are learning online, but not every kid has a home PC or a home tablet because of economics, right? Can they participate in the internet economy as it is today? But what if the internet economy in 5 years is even more. Just think of it like the internet, but even more. So the metaverse is just a more version of the internet. We're just getting more and more reliant on the internet. Now, we've got to make sure data is cheap and the devices are cheap, because otherwise large parts of the population outside rich places like, you and I chatting in nice parts of Dubai, they're going to be cut off from the metaverse. So to build the metaverse, you're going to need, so I said, these pipes, the devices, the consumer devices, but you also need content. Now, today, if you're playing around with the VR headset, it's kind of fun for a bit, but the amount of content you get on your 2D device, the amount of information, materials, it way surpasses. The 3D stuff's a bit of novelty value. So what will happen over the next 5-7 years is that content will be built. So there's going to be basically a lot of building, which is why if you're an investor or an analyst or a commentator or a business person, this is all super exciting, because it's a bit like, for me, it's like this is like just the next iteration of what we started in the 1990s when we were young. The consumer internet. I know you're still young, but the consumer internet, right? The consumer internet started in the 1990s. And this is just going to be the latest, multicolor. It's a bit like TV. When our parents first got TV back in India or the UK, it was black and white. It was a massive box. I mean, when I started watching TV back in the day, it was still a massive box. I mean, I'm sure it was flat screen for you, but it was a massive box, right? And Doordarshan would come on for a few hours a day. It'd be like bloody boring, right? I mean, and today we have like wall to wall, 24/7. I don't know how many thousand channels in most countries. And that kind of evolution, I mean, we're in that evolution for the internet. And the metaverse is like the multi-channel.
All right. So yeah. I don't want to sort of dampen the enthusiasm on the metaverse, right? For me, I'm less concerned about the amount of content that will be created, right? Because I can kind of see, you have young kids, I have young kids, and they're naturally generating content. Even if they're living in this sort of world of gaming, the amount of content they're developing, because, they're creating original characters, whether they're NFTs or not, that doesn't make a difference. It does. But my biggest concern is this is 10 years away. If we really want this sort of parallel universe to be created, right? We are a minimum decade away until and unless, the corporates and the companies who have sort of built the world we live in today are willing to take some serious sort of kind of hits on their balance sheets and say that we're going to build something out which will cannibalize what we've done, right? And then if something takes that long to adopt, right, there's always that risk that it might fizzle out.
No, totally.
From its, I guess, its so-called point of arrival. Right? I think the whole gaming piece and metaverse, I think it's a flyer. And I think kids, adults who are into gaming will heavily go into it. I think there is a space there for digital art. We're seeing it, right? Although I'm still sort of not convinced that, and I don't want to undermine the people who are selling NFTs for several $1,000s that, you want a monkey face on your wall.
Oh, those will cost you hundreds of thousands.
$100,000, right?
The apes
are crazy, right? So again, I'm not
Bored
undermining
but
it.
they're going to be,
I'm still not convinced that the metaverse has as many use cases. Right.
And no, it's a very relevant question. But can I answer that question? By objecting to one of your starting definitions. He said parallel universe, and I kind of bought into that a little bit earlier, but It's not a parallel universe because the way to think about it is it's not black and white or either and or. It's either fish or meat or whatever. It's both. It's like a digital twin. So think about it as a digital twin rather than a parallel universe. So like, here's a live example. You're building a factory outside Chennai. The guys doing it are on the ground, but they're also in South Korea. Or you're a doctor in Dubai and your patient is actually in a rural part of Iraq or Pakistan. How does the metaverse help you? You're basically getting a more photorealistic or visually realistic experience of what's happening in that factory in Chennai, or you're modeling it. So not just what's happening today, but as you're thinking, okay, how do I model this factory? I can model it in a 3D way, or how do I do that operation? I'm not on the ground, but there's a specialist there, but he's not as trained as me, and whether I'm in Dubai or in Hamburg or in New York, I can guide that specialist, or maybe myself through whatever, future next generation suits. I can maybe do that operation, but more likely with a specialist. So it's a merging of the physical reality and the virtual reality to again help in the physical world. So it's like I'm going physical.
So I stand corrected. I do agree. It is an extension.
So then it goes back to use cases. So I just talked about the use case in medicine, manufacturing. You talked about gaming because that's where a lot of the kind of next gen internet takes place today. Gaming is one. Education is going to be another one. Zoom education's boring, but the power of getting that education out to people, if you have like brilliant lecturers, we've all had that one really, I still remember like from my, think about school. I'm sure you can remember one really good teacher, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah? He's like, well, I just love you. There's always one, or there's always one, but if you could take that one inspirational teacher and sort of bottle him or her, like in the future, imagine a much bigger screen than this, and there's a hologram coming out of it, and the guy or lady is entertaining me. I'm learning about science or history from this amazing teacher. Now, you can do that today in a way with these online courses from the top universities, but it's 2D. Kids love 3D stuff, right? So education is going to be a huge use case. Enterprise. You mentioned Zoom calls. They drop sometimes, and it's not the same as this kind of in-person like bonding we're doing now, right? The chemistry that's mostly flowing, but after a while, it's a 2D thing. Imagine doing this in 3D. Now, maybe we have to get dressed up at that point. Or at least our avatars will get dressed up. So maybe we'd have to get dressed up. Our avatars get dressed up.
I can tell you they'll be a lot fitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Avatars are always slimmer and better looking anyway than we are in real life. But imagine doing the meetings in 3D. It doesn't have to be an avatar. Just or sort of these today's tech
half
is still
avatar.
It's kind of whatever half avatars that are floating around. But imagine if we could do this, but like in 3D, and it won't be a replacement. It's not like we won't do the physical, but before COVID, we used to get on planes. Everything was physical in a way. Now, it's the old saying: does it have to be a meeting? Can it be an email? Does it have to be me flying to Madrid or London? Let's do a 3D immersive thing. And then once in a while, we'll fly to Madrid.
The death of the airline industry, then.
No, we'll just accept. Well, the death of it's already happened, right? Business travel. It'll be it'll be Maldives and Miami instead of
instead of Madrid,
and
London. Right, Madrid keeps coming up. I guess, for obvious reasons. Let me dwell into the world of NFTs. Right. So for some bizarre reason, I'm hooked onto it.
Okay.
I think more as a, and I shouldn't use the term gambler, but I guess more as a gambler than anything else. So we're seeing this one use case around digital art, right?
Yeah.
So similar to the use cases of Metaverse, where do you see NFTs head? What's sort of next in NFTs? Yeah. And what is it that we should be paying attention to?
Sure. And it's kind of interesting you mentioned gambling because widely recognized as the smartest man in crypto, Vitalik recently called it this whole ape craze, and he said it's like gambling.
Yep.
He said it the other day, and it's true. Like some of these apes are going for hundreds of thousands, or like the Beeple was 69 million or whatever it was. I mean, so there is an element of gambling or speculation, but the analogy I'd always use is any great wave of technology. I'm not saying this is going to be great. I'm just saying any great wave of technological change. Think of all our day-to-day lives today. We're always using Google products, right, or Amazon or whatever. They all started in that first .com wave. Not all of them, but many of them. And then 90% of that, whatever it was, they got wiped out, right? Yeah. That .com bubble crash, 01, 02. But pretty much many of the big platforms we use were being either built and used before that bubble crash or just emerged. These people were kind of like the Facebooks and social media. They were already cogitating.
Let me put you on your spot. The correction we're seeing right now in terms of NFT purchases, is that the bubble bursting or is that just a natural correction?
God knows. I'm way too smart to try to make a comment like that into a definitive, because we don't know. What we've seen in the last month is transaction values have dropped a lot, which is what you're referring to. And
volumes have dropped a lot.
Volumes have dropped and values. But there's a war going on. And I don't mean to be like flippant. I mean, lots of people suffering now as we speak. But it's impossible to tell if some of these values have gone down because there's a war going on or because some of the air is coming out of this bubble. So NFTs, what is the use case in terms of NFTs? So why are the punks, the crypto punks, and now more recently these Bored Apes, why have they become so popular? Part of it is like all art. It's conspicuous. I don't know what cars you have. When I walk around my neighborhood, you look at the cars and you go, guys, like, why is there $1 million worth of cars outside your house? Like, really?
You obviously live in the right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, really? I mean, I have no cars outside my house, like a couple of bicycles, but why? Like $1 million of cars outside your house? Like, I mean, it's conspicuous consumption, and they're in purple and green and red or whatever because it looks nice in the sun here. But we do that. We do that with, why they have this, whatever. Make some money, you have a mass. In the old days, like, not just people, like institutions, banks, or big companies, like insurance companies, the most, careful what I say, but most boring companies in the world, right? They're these massive buildings with pillars and marble. And why? Because they wanted to impress people, right? Same with rich people or, royal families or whatever. You want to impress people. In the digital world, how do I impress someone? What's my equivalent of my McLaren or Ferrari? It's digital art. It's conspicuous. So there's a conspicuous consumption element. There's an identity and belonging element.
Sense of ownership seems to be big.
Yeah, it's part of a club. But I mean, it's literally,
So I get that. So what's next for NFTs? So what are the other sort of 2 or 3 use cases you do think that there? Because I do think there's some very useful NFTs. I had the gentleman from Shark Tank talk about how NFTs in the insurance sectors for watches was there. I think there is an angle in terms of expensive jewelry. So which other forms of NFTs do you think is going to sort of capture the imagination and utilization and it's going to get mainstreamed? So
NFTs is the fusing of, in a digital context, the fusing of ownership, the sense of ownership, and culture, right? It doesn't have to be culture, but culture or cultural goods and products are going to be a big part of it. So one thing we've noticed, or I've noticed, is a lot of big kind of consumer companies, retailers, luxury goods companies, are all thinking, how do I use NFTs as part of my marketing strategy or my commercial strategy? So they're all exploring, do I create a co-branded, whatever it is, a digital art, a digital music, and we get an artist in, maybe they wear our clothes, they sing to our brand values or whatever, and then, the artist gets royalties. Or if I'm a big media company, I get royalties. We share the royalties, right? It's a sense of co-creation, co-ownership. So for cultural or media, or anything consumer-facing, there's this huge market opportunity. But ultimately, it's about ownership in the digital space. Anything that you want to put, and it could be just like certificate, right? You talked about insurance.
Yeah, no, I totally said you could put an NFT on a Birkin bag, and we'll finally know who genuinely owns a Birkin bag.
Actually, there are these Meta Birkins you've probably come across, so maybe your wife has, and luckily, Mrs. Ghosh is not shopping for Meta Birkins, but those are more expensive, apparently.
Well,
than the actual
thank God I don't know about
Birkins.
them. I've heard about them. I've seen them. That's why I brought them
Meta
up.
Birkins are. But again, it's like, I'm getting a dangerous territory here, but can you justify the cost of a physical Birkin bag? I mean,
but never could.
It's like
never could.
I've heard about them, and I've not.
I sometimes can't even justify the cost of the fake Birkin bags, which are floating around in Dubai. Let me come. I'm conscious of time, but so role of money, right? So we've talked a lot about money. So and the report is very rich on that sort of the context, because it is metaverse and money, right? So role of money in the metaverse, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see that heading, right? Yeah. So how does that play out?
Sure. So money is going to come in many form factors in the metaverse.
Yes.
We talked a lot about gaming in this conversation. So we already have in-game tokens, right? So you're playing Roblox,
you're buying skins.
Robux, and exactly. So like this past holiday season, a big thing for like the, I think, 7 to 9-year-old or 7 to 11-year-old set was, give me these digital tokens, right? It's a bit like for us, gift vouchers, right? If you're unlucky, you got like physical gift voucher. Oh, I can spend it in WH Smith or a bookshop. Brilliant. But now it's like, it's a digital gift voucher. So that in the metaverse, tokens are going to be one very important way of transferring value, i.e. money, particularly in the blockchain-based metaverse. So you think about the metaverse, there's going to be a spectrum into the technology and business model. At one end, you're going to have a blockchain-based, quote-unquote, decentralized metaverse. And at the other end, you're going to have all kinds of technologies, but not solely one technology, not blockchain. And the business model is going to be these existing centralized platforms that we have today that we sometimes love, sometimes hate. So that's the spectrum. And if you're in the blockchain-based end of the spectrum, then the money that is going to be some kind of token. It could be decentralized crypto, one of these public cryptos. It could be a stable coin, so linked to fiat, linked to the dollar or whatever. It could be a CBDC. But the reason tokens will be the native currency of the blockchain-based metaverse is that it's native to the blockchain, and it's got some benefits, many benefits. So, if I send you money through, I don't know, any electronic device, or my bank account to your bank account, as you know, it's a debit in my bank account and a credit to yours. But it has to go to the banking system.
Yep.
Or like, a credit card, etc. But a token can go like here. Shall I give you a banknote? So let's see.
I'm not going to return it, by the way.
Okay.
He's going to give me a $5.
Oh no, I've got £20 notes. I'm not going to give you those. Those are actually valuable. 5 dirhams.
I told you he's going to give you 5.
Yeah. So I hand over a 5 dirham note to you.
And there you go. That's my token.
You've got it. It's yours.
Yep.
I don't need to go to Emirates MBD or Fab and drop that in, and you don't need to pick it up from your bank. It's gone. It's direct. In the digital world, I can't up to now do it because I could send you the famous digital file. You can have my 5 dirhams back now.
Here we go.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, if I'd done that through the banking system or credit cards, I probably have to pay a fee for that as well.
But I'm sorry, in the metaverse, the gas fees could kill you.
Now it depends on which network you're using, right? So if you're using a layer 1, like if that's why people won't use Ethereum. You'll be using layer 2s, as they're called. So those have grown up because their transaction costs and also speed and volume and throughput capacity are much greater. So tokens are going to be big in the decentralized blockchain-based metaverse. Now, in the centralized metaverse, I've got my Oculus on, or my Google glasses, or my Apple, or whatever. Or if I'm in Korea, it's probably Naver or whatever. In that world, I'm sure Apple will come out with some kind of Apple Pay thing, right, in the metaverse. Like, click on your device 2 times, or just blink, and then you've done your transaction, or whatever. Smile at the camera, and so there'll be multiplicity options. It'll run through existing fiat-based rails. The issue is going to be, though, those kind of work quite well, usually intra-country. So you're sitting in, now in the UAE we have faster payments for up to a certain amount of whatever, but we have it, and it's free to the consumer. Same in India, and in fact, large parts of the world outside the US. That's great. Now, because in the metaverse, you wanted payments to be instant, fast, etc., cheap for the consumer, or free cost. But what if I'm doing something cross-border? Because in the metaverse, why do I care that I'm in?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
Well, you're in the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly.
There is cross-border in the metaverse.
Yeah, so if it's a transaction taking place and the other person is in a different currency block, country, how does that work? I mean, and that's going to be the problem. That's why tokens are better than, like if we're both in the rupee zone, then the money is just flowing inside the rupee zone from my like digital wallet, from my whatever, my Google wallet to your Google wallet or whatever.
But this is going to be a nightmare for central banks, right? For any regulators.
Well, there's going to be a lot of policy and regulation questions, not just about money. In fact, in a way, the policy and regulatory questions are potentially bigger for the non-monetary. So think about all the things we worry about today. You know, we both have children, and you think about like, you know, what are our kids doing online? Yeah. Now, all the bad stuff that happens online today,
It's going to get amplified.
yeah, because it'll be in 3D. I mean, and God help us when we get haptic
Exactly.
suits. I mean, can you imagine what that's going to be like? But all the good things we have today, like the huge amount of information, knowledge, social connections. I mean, can you imagine the 70s and 80s? You could call someone on a payphone because, you know, you're calling home or something, or like dial, and then, you know, some operator puts you through. Now you can just pick up the phone and call anyone. Or you Zoom.
So I don't know if this is the dystopian future.
Yeah.
Are we all just going to be sort of in dark rooms? and I don't know. I do fear. I think there is
it's already happened, right? There's a generation of these herbivores out there who don't go out.
Yeah, there is a pathway which is not as cool as it might sound. You know, it's dark. As you said,
could
it's
be.
compulsive. It's addictive.
It's addictive.
You know, it's
or you use it to basically get mind-blowing education, life-saving medicine, you know, next generation manufacturing. It could be either or.
Yeah,
and
but
don't
it could
forget,
polarize, right?
But don't forget, like, I mean, for most people who weren't like aristocrats in the 19th century, life was pretty, you know, grim, brutal. I mean, there's a reason we call them, you know, Dickensian, right? I mean, if you were in a factory in the 1850s, it wasn't a pretty life. So what it's like, Metaverse is like any other transition in technology. There's positives and negatives, and then it's us as a society or us as individuals or parents or whatever that, you know, we have to try to find the positives and regulate away some of the negatives. Because so going back to right where we started, you said, what is the metaverse? And I said, it's like internet but more.
Yeah.
And that's so everything that's good about the internet and everything that's bad about the internet, you can say the same thing about the metaverse.
So you know, and I'm conscious of the time, and thanks a lot for this. You know, I'll end it what I want to say, and then you know, I'm sure is yes, it's internet and more, right? And while the topic is intriguing and exciting, right? The person in me makes me feel that this is it's a dangerous, slippery slope.
What is a slippery slope?
This whole concept of how metaverse is going to be adopted, right? Because I think it's coming at a speed, right, which is sort of uncontrollable, right? It's being adopted by a generation who might not know any different, right? The so-called regulating of it is being left to a generation who knows no better, because it's something that we're really not, you know, we're kind of sort of 10 years too old, at least I am, to fully embrace it.
Age is a number.
Well, I don't know, ageism, or call it whatever you are. In the sense, I'm sort of on the fence.
I hear you.
I'm genuinely on the fence. I'm intrigued by the topic. It's intellectually stimulating.
It's.
I would just say I read 160 pages last night.
I was just saying, like, go back to the first book, printed book. A lot of people thought that was dangerous. Like, oh my God. Before, knowledge was created by priests or Brahmins. Now, any old whatever Joe can print a book. The first printed book, right, in Europe. I'm sure the Chinese did it before the Europeans, but the Europeans wrote most of modern history, so we think the Europeans are, you're like, that you know, that caused ripples, that caused waves. Like any knowledge or discovery does. Railways, I mean, railways are probably seen as something like, you know, devil's play or something, right? This thing that's moving so fast. So any kind of new development, I'm sure when TVs arrived, a lot of people would say, well, like, you know, when we were kids, a lot of people were like, go out and play. You know, what are you looking at your screen for? Always.
Well, today you can't even do that. You say that, and your kids will sort of bite your head off.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, right. Just to sort of summarize it. So the summary is, and this is what I'm taking away, right? Metaverse is here to stay. That is the future.
Metaverse is evolving. It's growing.
But it is the future, right? Yeah. So it's embrace it or get left behind. Because if I take that analogy of the first book, which
you can't cancel. It's like you can cancel technology. That's the way to think about it.
But adoptions can vary.
Yeah.
But this is in me. Yeah. In my words, this is more than just a technology shift. This is changing lives to a level that I don't think anything has given that big a jump. Maybe the internet did. But
modern medicine.
Modern medicine did.
I mean, that was massive, right? I mean, I don't know.
But it was for the better, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
Right? Because my mum would have died in childbirth.
Right.
So be graphic about it, but so just
thanks a lot. There was something I didn't know about Ronit. That's another bit of information.
Yeah. Like cesareans,
so
right?
it is
anyone who's born by a cesarean. Sorry.
so get onto the bandwagon is kind of the mantra, right? To the extent you want to get on is your choice. Yeah. But I think whether as parents or whether as people who want to be a part of the new world which is emerging, right? You cannot live in ignorance of the metaverse. Totally.
Because before, go back to, I talked about the book. Before you had the book, there were manuscripts, they were handwritten. A very small number of tiny elite people had those manuscripts. And everyone else would just listen to people, repeating from rote learning. And then, when I was a kid, probably the same for you, we had libraries. You go and you take a book out of the library, or we'd be able to buy a few books. Now we have the whole world's books all online, right? So those, instead of, it's kind of fun to go to a library and so on, but the leaps of, availability of knowledge, of education, of us, and what the metaverse is doing is just, instead of now getting my knowledge in a 2D way, I'm getting it 3D. I'm getting it in a more immersive way. Can you imagine having the smartest people in the world, the funniest people in the world just in front of you? You're listening to them
I've got one of the smartest people in Dubai here in front of me. It's the 2D world. That's great. But you've convinced me. One of my projects now is going to be how I take Couchonomics with Arjun into the metaverse.
Let's do this again soon in the metaverse.
I bought some land.
You've got some land?
Yes, I bought some land.
You bought some land?
Yes, I did. Right,
you can take the boy out of Dubai, but you can't take Dubai out of the boy.
Yeah, I bought some land, and it's actually done very well for itself.
Okay, well
done.
Even
though there's correction, I think that's the bit which is.
Has it done better than the physical land in Dubai?
Well, I'll keep that to myself. At least I live in the physical land, right? But no, this is a project which I'm actually I'm gonna take seriously. Okay. But on that note, thank you on two counts. Firstly, for giving me the access to the report or first sight of the report.
Yeah, you want but very few people.
But it'll be out
very soon.
Right.
Download it. If you're watching this, download the report.
No, I bet you must. It is a very interesting read, and I think for people who come
maybe you can put it in the show notes, like a link to the report in the show notes.
I will do everything you want me to do, right? Everything, right? But no, thank you for that, and thank you for coming in, right?
It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you taking out time this late in the evening and
on a Friday,
and on a Friday,
I know.
and doing this show. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and I'll say goodbye to you guys. It's always a pleasure talking to Ronit, even when we are not talking about the metaverse. So with that, that's the end of this episode, and I'll see you the next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.